Growing uncommon crops or experimenting with lesser-known varieties may be my favorite thing about gardening. Truth be told, I never know exactly what's going to happen, and that's what makes it so exciting. And when it comes to root crops, the results are all the more thrilling because they're shrouded in mystery until the moment you harvest. I've been vegetable gardening in Central Texas since 2007, but I've never grown jicama until this year. Let's dig into some buried treasure, and I'll share my tips for growing this delicious garden gem along the way. I'm Scott from New Garden Road, always out here to inform, inspire, and elevate you. Encouraging biodiversity and restoring habitat is my mission, one garden at a time. If you're interested in growing your own jicama, you'll need to plant it from seed in late spring or early summer. Soil temperatures need to be 70 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. I planted seeds in my garden in early May, and they grew through the second hottest summer in Austin, Texas history. I got my seeds from Kitazawa Seed Company, and the back of that packet recommends removing the flower buds to promote root production. But since I was growing 15 plants, I did allow a few seed pods to form. We're in our second week of December here in Central Texas, but I've got my fingers crossed that I'll be able to save some seeds. But as is the case with saving other seeds, that hinges on them maturing and drying on the vine. They will need a trellis or something to climb on as they begin to grow, and they're great for interplanting in small garden spaces. I spaced my seeds 6 inches apart, and I ended up growing 15 plants in 2 square feet. Jicama needs a long growing season, and you can expect 1 tuber per plant. You can plan on harvesting after 5 months of growth or before your first frost. Mine were growing in the garden for 7 months. As long as conditions are ideal for their development, they'll just keep on growing. I do have some tips for harvesting, and they will be similar to what I recommend for many root crops. About a week before you plan to harvest, you can give them 1 more deep watering, and then you need to allow the soil to dry. And I do think it's important to anticipate any seasonal weather trends. If the forecast calls for cool and moist conditions, you may have to take some extra steps to allow that soil to dry out. Through this scenario in the past, I've employed a hoop house structure and some 6mm plastic that will shield the soil from any anticipated rains. And when you're ready to harvest, you're going to start by cutting the stem. For me, I was able to remove my trellis, which made harvesting easier. And at that point, you really want to work with your hands for the most part. What I found was the tubers were 3 to 4 inches below the soil level. And that's when you turn into a bit of an archaeologist, because with many root crops, you want to treat them like eggs. You want to be really gentle. A lot of times they have a skin that needs to cure, and if you're rough with them, you can rub off that skin, and that could be detrimental to their long-term storage. Once you have a clear line of sight to the crown of your jicama, that's when you'll need a tool such as a hori-hori knife or a garden trowel. I love my hori-hori knife, and I use it endlessly in the garden. It's really good in this instance because it has a serrated edge, and that allowed me to get under the jicama and cut the taproot. And once I did that, it just came right out of the soil. One other thing I wanted to share with you, just some perspective. On the seed package, it says you need 20 inches of soil depth. I'm not going to doubt that because this was about 4 inches down in the ground, and that's not the entirety of the taproot right there. So pretty deep taproot. I was really excited about the harvest that I got from growing these jicama. I got some big ones, I got some little ones. We were having some cooler, moist conditions ahead of harvesting this jicama, and what I did notice was that a few of them were a little bit soft and may have been already rotting. The tubers that I harvested from the drier sections of soil seem to be in perfect shape. Jicama stores best in dark, cool, dry conditions between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. I've been keeping them in my shed for the last few days, and it's a little bit warmer than they like. So you can see I've got a few here that I've separated, and some of them are pretty far gone. I'd say this one right here doesn't look like it's gonna make it. This one here, it's just got a little bit of mold on one side, but the rest of it seems just fine. But over here, I've got a lot of really nice ones, and this is plenty of jicama for me. Now that the soil on the outside of them has dried thoroughly, I'm going to bring them inside and store them in the crisper of my refrigerator. I just took a dry dish brush and started taking off some of that dry soil. The ones that are in really good shape, I'm probably going to store them just like that, and I'll wash them prior to use. As for the ones that have some rot on them, I think what I'm going to do is clean those up a little bit better once I get inside, cut out any bits that are no good, and I'll end up using those first. Alright, so I want to do a taste test and share my first impressions on my first homegrown jicama. But before I do that, I want to let you know that besides the root tubers themselves, all parts of this plant are toxic, including the seeds, the leaves, and the stems, even the skin. Yeah, that's nice. I would say that the flavor is closer to that of a mild pear. The texture is in between a pear and an apple, somewhat. Very mild. So if you never had jicama and you're interested in growing it, find some at a local grocery store and give it a taste test so you'll know what it's all about, because that's a big investment of time and space in your garden. This is something that I typically eat raw, but it can be cooked. You don't want to overcook it though, because you want it to retain some crispy texture. And I think there's some pretty good recipes out there for making some jicama keto fries. Take one, and I'm gonna talk about this jicama. Sound like a DJ. What's up with that? What's gonna happen? Probably gonna be fine. You like jicama? I wasn't gonna do that. You want it to retain some of that crispness. Ugh, stop it. Now check out more awesome gardening videos on my channel. Like this video and follow New Garden Road for weekly content. You can grow your own food. Keep it organic.